What's up everyone, you're watching Benko Reviews, and today we'll be taking a look at the Samsung Ativ S. So let's go ahead and see if this is the Windows Phone device you want in your hands. Starting out with the design like I do in most of my reviews, we're gonna this, as you can see with the Samsung Ativ S, looking over it, you can definitely tell it's a Samsung phone. It's got the same body as most Samsung phones do, and it doesn't really look that unique, especially considering the way Samsung builds their phones. You can definitely tell it's a Samsung. But on the front here, we have a 4.8-inch HD display with your two capacitive buttons and your main home button. Right here we have the Samsung logo, and above it we have a speaker grill, so that when you're talking you can hear someone. Right here we have a front-facing camera. Up here we have a 3.5mm jack and a microphone for video recording. On the bottom we have another microphone for for phone calling, and we also have a micro USB port. On the side we have a camera shutter button and the power button. And over here we have the volume rocker. On the back we have a 8-megapixel sensor for camera and snapshots with a single LED flash. On the back, and it does look metal, but it's actually plastic, which is disappointing about this phone. This phone feels fairly cheap, and that is kind of disappointing considering this phone is $150 on a contract. Well, it's actually, you can find it cheaper sometimes. But overall, the design certainly is not the best. Moving on to the software side of this phone, it's running a standardized Windows Phone 8 with a bunch of custom apps from Rogers and Samsung, which you can remove the Rogers apps, but you cannot remove most of the Samsung ones. You can remove some, like Family Story, but some you cannot remove. So I'm going to go over quickly the bloatware that comes on this device. There's Anyplace TV, Family Story, Chat On, and some basic Samsung apps, along with one number, and this will vary depending on what carrier you purchase from. Now, looking over Windows Phone 8, it's very standard, and basically every Windows Phone 8 looks alike based on software. You have your Metro UI with customizable live tiles, like we've mostly all seen before. So you can customize them, resize them, and just really do anything you want with the live tiles. So the Windows Phone 8 is pretty standard on most phones, and as long as you like Windows Phone 8, you should like the software of this phone. Going over the calling experience on this phone, I did make a few calls with this phone, of course for testing purposes, and it did sound fairly well. The sound was pretty good, and the other person said they could hear me fine, and I really had no problems with the calling on this phone. I haven't had any dropped calls with using the Rogers, but you can get some pretty shanty connection. Well, that's basically with any carrier. But going into speed test, and this is also for network, this phone also has LTE, which is nice if you live in the city. But most Windows Phone 8 phones have this, and that's the biggest problem with this phone. It's no different than most Windows phones. There's not much to set aside other than really design. So while we're waiting for this to boot up, I'm taking actually A1. So we're going to go to my results, and I've taken a few tests, as you can see. And normally with HSPA Plus, I didn't take any tests in LTE, which I should have. But I'm getting about 2.5 up and 2.5 down and 1 up, and 2 to 3 megabytes is what you'd expect. It's fairly fast, and it'll get the job done. Moving on to this final verdict of this phone, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It's not really that there's anything wrong with the hardware of this phone. It is pretty up to date, based-wise on the specs. It's just that with most Windows phones, there's certainly better ones out there. You can get basically all these features and a better design in the HTC 8X. And if you're looking for a Windows phone, I'd go for that or the Lumia 920, depending on your personal preference. So I'm giving this a 7 out of 10. It works fine as a phone, and you're going to have no problems if you buy it, unless you're really a design junkie and you care about build quality. You're not going to get an industrial build, shall we say, with this phone. So I'd like to thank Rogers for sending this phone out for review purposes. Thank you for liking this video, and I will be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.